The Cowboys, I think, have a fatal flaw. So this morning I did, and I'll sort of reprise it here on the radio in a little while as a green list, the top 5 contenders I have to the 49ers. To me, the NFL playoffs this year are the San Francisco Invitational. They are definitively the best team. So I put together my list of the 5 teams I could see having the best chance of beating them. And I did not have Dallas or Philadelphia on the list. And I know people are going to make fun of me because I get it. You know, one of them is going to be the 2 seed in the NFC. But what I'm saying is I don't see the Cowboys. If they play the 49ers again, I don't care where that game is played. After what I saw Buffalo do to them the other day, that's exactly what the 49ers do, only they do it better.
Yeah.
They're going to get bludgeoned. You cannot be a team that gets bludgeoned and play with the 49ers.
I have no issue with you leaving Dallas and Philly off the list because the games that they played against San Francisco this year kind of left no doubt.
Yep.
Right? I mean, they weren't in the same class. So I'll give Dallas credit for this. They have shown to be they've shown to be a little bit adaptable, right? I mean, like we talked at the starting of the year, they had one plan for the offense. They changed it, not only because it wasn't necessarily working, but also because they identified what they were doing well and decided to lean into that. So I think they have the ability, and that coaching staff has the ability to kind of look at the Buffalo game and go, all right, what happened here? Right? Now, your point may be that they're not physical enough, and there's no amount of schemed adjustment that can account for that, and that may be true. But I do think you'll see a different kind of Dallas team in Miami than you saw in Buffalo this past week. I just think they've shown in the leadership positions this year that they have the ability to identify their mistakes and address them. So I'm not writing them off just yet.
Chuck Daly, I think, is the first one I ever heard say this, the legendary NBA coach, who once said after about 10 years, they just stop listening to you. Now, there's enormous turnover in NFL players. Tomlin is in year, what, 16? 17, something like that? So there are no players left on his roster who were on that team when he got there. But is it at some point not as much a statement about him, not as much a statement about his coaching acumen, not as much a statement about anything as it is there's just a time for everything, and it would be in everyone's best interest if he wound up somewhere else. Because, yes, I believe he would be someone else's head coach immediately. I think he is an excellent football coach. That does not mean that, A, the players aren't that they are not playing like Steelers. The nonsense we're seeing from Deontay Johnson and George Pickens, that's not what that organization stands for. And B, someone has to take the fall for that offense. He hung on to Matt Canada forever. Like, that offense is archaic. And at the end of the day, when you're the head coach, the buck stops with you.
I'll tell you this. The offense is terribly concerning and has been for quite some time. But this team just played Bailey Zappi and Gardner Minshew. And they have the highest paid defense in the NFL. And they each threw 3 touchdowns against them.
Yeah.
Like, that to me is just as concerning. The defense isn't playing well. The offense has no idea what it's doing. And we have examples that we showed on TV today in which the Steelers are not playing. The Steelers are not playing hard. That's not a Mike Tomlin team. That is not a Mike Tomlin world. I could see there being a sort of mutual agreement to part ways at the end of the season that could benefit both parties potentially.
Was that the worst game played in NFL history? I went on Twitter after that game, and the Arthur Smith, what coach has ever done less with more than he? I don't care what the weather is. I don't care if animals are boarding a boat 2 by 2. I don't care if it's raining that much. You cannot score 7 points against Carolina. You just cannot do it. That is an embarrassing loss. The the Falcons have no business making the playoffs, even though they have by far the best team. They drafted Kyle Pitts 4th in the draft. They don't want to use him. They drafted Bijan Robinson. Was it 7th last year?
6, right?
They don't want to use him. What the hell are they doing?
I would like to send my condolences to Bijan Robinson fantasy owners. He was started in 95% of ESPN.com fantasy leagues, a playoff week, by the way, and gained 0.4 points. One of the worst all-time playoff performances in the history of fantasy football.
On a day where you couldn't possibly throw the ball because of what you would figure that would be a day to run it.
It was the 8th pick last year, excuse me.
He was the 8th pick in the draft last year. It's ridiculous. I mean, I'm flabbergasted at their play calling, at their strategy, at their organizational philosophy, whatever they're doing, they're getting it so ridiculously wrong.